Hey guys, so we're another episode of 30 Questions with Thriving Women. And today we have a special guest who was actually my old roommate in Australia. And you know what they say that you should find a friend that you do stupid things with when you're in your 20s. I mean, I made
I
that up.
wonder I wonder how it is to be roomies with you, Bea.
Oh, you can
Uh,
ask her. But
Sumakat ulo
this
niya.
this girl has always had like a really special perspective in life. I would say, I was thinking about an introduction and I thought about Diana, Princess of the People. This is like the princess of the internet. Yeah.
Wow. Hello. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. That was the best introduction ever. I wish we could go back to the past. And then if someone intercomed our apartment, that's how you'd introduce me.
Yeah, you have to change your bio to Princess of the Internet. I thought
Like,
of
hello,
that.
Australia Post, wait lang, the princess of the internet is not ready.
So,
Yes.
Coco, before we start our questions though, how was Bea as a roommate? Sakat ba sa
Ooh,
ulo?
no, not naman masakit sa ulo. But, you're in your 20s, you're exploring. Of course, you're gonna butt heads. I think Bea and I were a lot the same. Like,
Mm.
we're clean when we want to be, and we're not most of the time. But when we need to, we're responsible.
Okay, we're so we'll start off finding out, Coco, like what was your first side hustle?
Okay, so my first side hustle was I was in grade two and I would sell Robbie stickers. Do you guys remember Robbie stickers? Like the labels from the
Yeah.
mall. Yes,
Yes.
it had like a sideline. Like I think it was the start of like affiliate marketing because each label was 50 pesos and then you got to keep $10. So I did that for like 1 week because three people ordered from me, but I lost their money. So I had to ask my dad for like $150. So that wasn't a great enterprise. But then the next one was in college now, and I was already living with Bear. I went home one day and I was like, Bea, guess what? I'm gonna be a waitress. You have to go shopping with me. I need a uniform.
Those are the times. I think everyone has to start off in waitressing. I think it's a lesson in kindness. So, besides a side hustle, what was your first full time job after graduating, and what was that like?
Yeah, so the first very, very full time job was also a Bea centered experience. So we went shopping at this shoe store, and then her cousin worked there. And then I asked her cousin Carla if I could come have a job. And she was like, yeah, for sure. Come for an interview. So I went in and then successful interview. So I was selling shoes at this shoe store for about maybe a year or 2 years. So the first year was just like an after school job. And then after that, I stayed and did it full time.
Yeah.
Did you like
Selling.
it selling shoes? Or did you what special talent did you get, would you say?
I guess just being comfortable being around others. Like there's a lot of just calling people hun or babe and not being shy about it. I guess also just the skill of like putting other people's shoes on for them. Like I feel
Hmm.
it's a very humbling experience. Or like other hard skills or
Yeah.
soft skills like organization and timekeeping and being responsible for someone's business.
Hmm.
And
They don't
yeah,
they
the part
don't
is
teach you that in university or high school, you
yeah,
know.
they don't. Like I wouldn't have known that or even just like you have cute little life hacks that you learn, like, hey, put rice in your shoes so that they'll feel better. Or freeze your jeans so you don't have to wash them. Like stuff like
Hmm.
that. Like I would never learn that. This was like pre BuzzFeed era of like having talk points and I guess it made me more conversational, like I had stuff to talk about.
Mm.
Yeah.
If I went out on a date and we like, hey, fun fact, you can put your jeans in the freezer. Like, I would have
Say
had
it,
to go into
say
school.
it with a say it with a seductive voice. Alam mo
Yeah.
ba?
Coco, we're a dating show, by the way, and I still think fun facts are good dating icebreakers. Okay, so let's jump a little bit to your career in PR. I mean, all the stuff like whether you're waitressing or working in retail has kind of led you to that. And when you told me you were working in PR, I was like, of course, why not? That's just like the perfect. What led you to that career?
Yeah. So I first kind of wanted to be in an agency right after school. There was an agency in Australia called Get Glossy, and basically it was social media marketing before it was a thing. So their clients were like skincare and makeup, but that didn't really work out, and I had to come home. So at one point, I got into PR because there was a celeb that needed an event, and my partner was like, hey, let's do this event for him. It's going to be fun. And then I did the event. It was super successful. And I ended up getting a job at that agency.
Do you have any advice for people that are just getting in? Like, just give the hard, cold truth
Yeah.
to people that just think it's an easy thing. You know, they just, oh, it seems glamorous, but obviously it's not.
I think that's super important, especially for like younger people who want to get into PR because they think events are fun. Events
Mm.
are fun if you're a guest, but not if you're planning it. And there's a lot of like really ugly stuff that you need to do. Like you'll have to like clean the floor, or you have to fight with a supplier to get a price, or you have to be ready. I guess the biggest thing is you have to be ready for stuff to go wrong, because my rule of thumb all the time is if you want to have a successful any kind of venture or event or project, you have to expect that something's going to go wrong, and you have to figure out how to make it work even if something went wrong. Like I think your success is based on how well you addressed whatever kind of effed up.
Did you have any big disasters in your career that you just really don't want to live through again?
Oh, for sure. So a lot of what I do in PR is handling influencers and endorsers. So these are like really big names that have tough schedules and really expensive talent fees. One time we had an event in Baguio and I completely got the date wrong. So
How many dates like after, before? What?
no, like it was like the date. Okay, I remember it so well because it was supposed to be on September 20th, and I had accidentally said September 21st. So the talent manager booked us for the 21st, and then it completely like just left my head. And then I was following up their billing, like, hey, where's your billing for the event on September 20? And they're like, it's not September 20, it's September 21. I was like, no,
Oh,
it's not. It's September 20. I have it on my calendar. It's here. And they're like, no, look at this screenshot. You said September 21. And then I just froze and I cried. I cried myself to mini stop. I cried myself getting a magnum and lining up. Like I probably smoked 2 packs of Yossi for that day because I was really just mortified. So
yeah.
of course it's like a new me. And then I still had, when you're like a kid and you want to blame it on someone else, or maybe that's just me. But I chalked it up to like it was just miscommunication on everyone's part.
Yeah.
This is not my fault. And
Mm.
then after eating that Magnum, I'm like, nope, you gotta own up to it. It's your fault. So I just told the client, like, I'll work on getting you another date for her for like a special event, or I'll change the values, but super my fault. So sorry. Um, Needless to say, the client wasn't super happy, but I guess the word, because there's no word for it in English, but in Tagalog, it's natawid ko siya.
Mm.
I don't
I love that.
know.
What do you think your next career milestone would be?
I've gone through my entire career always saying like, hey, no, I'm not a business owner. I'm an employee. Like
Yeah.
that's where I shine. Like maybe one day I'll be the CEO of Disney, but I won't own Disney because it's not me. I work for someone and that's what I'm good at. So since 2020 was just a shit show, I thought, hey, might as well. Like
Yeah.
I mean, try. If it fails, you can go be the employee that you say you are. But
Yeah.
for now, in this weird upside down world, maybe you would actually be successful as a business owner. Figure it
Yeah.
out, see what happens.
So, Coco, you did mention that it was a shit show of 2020, and I'm sure it has been for a lot. I just wanted to know, like, what was that like, and how have you kind of learned how to overcome that challenge on your health?
Oh, so I think what was really the scary part of the whole thing is knowing that somehow it's your fault. I'm a person that doesn't deal very well with, like, since I'm very new to accountability
Mhm.
and owning stuff, knowing that some part of my health deteriorating was my fault. So it's like genetics plus myself and my bad habits causing this big health crisis. So I had to kind of like figure out a way to not just be so myself to address that. So
Yeah.
Bea would know, like, even from the past, that I'm like a team no sleep, get ready, it's a new day type person. Like,
Yeah.
let's never sleep. Sleep is so
Sleep
joy.
is for the dead. Sleep is for the dead was our motto.
And then it just finally caught up with me. And then my thyroid was just
Yeah.
like working overtime. I was like, no, sit down. It's
Calm
Coco
down.
just sit. So that's kind of what happened. That was what it felt like. My body was just like, because that was the time when I was also in an agency. So coming from high agency, high pressure, high management job, back to high management job, agency stress, undermanned team. It was a time where my body was like, hey, you're not curing cancer.
What did the doctor tell you? And like, how did you like, I guess, tell other people in your, I guess, your close circle?
I actually went to the hospital because I thought that I was getting a heart attack. Because I'm obsessed with like taking like data from myself. So I have like a sleep app and a heart rate app and
Wow.
a period app. Like I track everything. So I was tracking my heart rate, and for the first time it hit 160, and I was just eating lunch with an office mate. And then I was like, I called my mom. So I was like, Mama, like I'm 30 years old, but I'm like, Mama, I need to go to the hospital because like I think I'm having a heart attack or an anxiety attack. She's like, okay, just wait for me. Luckily, I was working, like I worked across where I lived, so I walked home, waited for my mom, got to the hospital, and they were like, oh, we're gonna take all these tests. You have a fever, you have diarrhea, you have an elevated heart rate. We're gonna put you in the ICU. And I was so scared because this is the first time where like COVID was coming here, and I didn't want to catch it because I was
Yeah.
like, no, I might have to go to the office and bring this weird sickness. So it turned out it was this thing called the thyroid storm. So basically, it's just your thyroid super mad, throwing your body out of whack, and then you just have to deal with it. So for some people, they just get a heart attack and then game over. For some people, they just get really, really sick. And I was lucky enough to just get like the most, I'm going to say basic one, but I don't know. I guess the non lethal version. It was Graves' disease, which is the opposite version of Hashimoto's. And sadly, the only person that has that is Wendy Williams. So I try not to bring it up. Like, I'm like, oh no, I'm the most famous person who has Graves' disease. No one else. Oh, Hashimoto's Gigi has that, but not me.
Yeah.
That is my positioning. Stress is such a big deal that now every time I get stressed, like for example, even with a client, I have to be really forthcoming and say, hey, I have an autoimmune disease. I have to manage my stress in such a way that it doesn't trigger my sickness. So
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying don't be demanding. I'm just saying there might be a time where in a meeting and I think you're asking for something I can't deliver, I will have to tell you. Like I can't over
Mm-mm.
promise, I can't over deliver because it's biologically not possible.
You have a big family, and in the Philippines, it's also very stressful, right? I guess tell me a little bit more about your family and what that's been like for you.
Family wise, there's like 18 of us. A few
Yeah.
have passed away, a few are in America. There's not many left here, and we're such different ages that we don't kind of coincide. But I also like make sure that I remove myself from any situation that I know will stress me out. So I'm not in a Viber group. I'm not in
Smart.
family chat. If I see like fake news or like a fake Viber message come in, mga away talaga ako ng kapatid. Like, and I like it. That's not like a stressor that I need because I know like
Yeah.
a lot of my siblings are older. They're set in their ways, so they can just kind of live it out, just not hurt anyone else. Like, okay, the earth is flat, fine.
Mhm.
So it's like it's a choose your battles kind of situation, especially when you have so many different strong personalities. It's definitely, I'm really a proponent of, if something is super toxic, you have to remove yourself from it.
When someone refers to you as the daughter of your mom or your father, like, did it bother you before, and does it still bother you?
Before, it didn't bother me because I saw it as such a like, I'm so lucky moment. Like, I would
Yeah.
always joke around that I was the first white person adopted by an Asian family in some sort of affirmative action moment, like a reverse Angelina Jolie. And I something I never had to work with in Australia because they're like, who cares? Like, who the fuck is that? So that was never me in Melbourne. So that to come back here and kind of not have it be so apparent, I think has helped out. So I think for a lot of jobs that I had, they don't find out till much later because they're like, oh, you're from Australia, you can't possibly be from here. And then they find out later on, and it's like, okay, cool. I love your mom. I love your dad. And I'm like, nice. My time,
I love them too.
and I'll see you next week. So I think there's like a part of it that
Yeah.
before I would really be against it, but now I'm like, yeah, that's my dad. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in a very wala ka sa lolo ko way. Yeah.
So, how do you think people should handle their trolls and haters? And have you had any experience with a troll or a
Yeah.
hater?
Someone one time was, you should lose weight. And then I was like, hey, can I have your email? And I sent her an invoice for the gym. And then she was like, what? And I was like, hey, you're telling me to lose weight. I just want to do it by myself. You have to do it if you want to help me lose weight. And then she just
Uh,
never commented ever again.
I love
I,
that.
I like your
Send an
vibe.
invoice.
I like it. I
So
like
it's
it.
like, you're gonna fuck around. You have to deal with a see what happens moment.
Do you think that there's still a stigma now about
Mm.
adopted kids or adopting?
What I don't really get is the Philippines for the longest time had this culture of pasahan ng baby. Like,
Mm,
I've had titas who were actually the kids of someone's lola and then was given to
Yeah.
them.
yeah.
But then adoption is still such a crazy topic. Like, what? You're someone else's child. I'm like, I really think it's just the telenovela-ness of it, and
Yeah.
like the idea of just the biblical mom and dad love each other and have a baby. And I think my number one gauge on knowing why it's not normalized is every year, like a website like pep.ph is gonna come out with a listicle that's like, here are top 10 babies who were adopted by artistas, and I would always be in it. Like, I've been in it for like 30 years.
Like evergreen content. That's like, who knew?
Of like hygiene marketing, they'll always have that content. But it's
Yeah.
like sometimes you'll have new people. Like, you'll have Sabina Santiago of Claudine Barreto, and then you'll have Judy Ann's kids. So sometimes I'm like, oh, these are like my new peers who I'm like coming into the fold. Like, hey
Yeah.
guys, we're gonna be here for the next 30 years.
Coco, what's the best advice you've ever received, and from who?
Um, this is gonna sound super conceited, but
Go for
me,
it.
I
the
like
best
it.
advice I've ever received, the best advice I've ever received from someone, and that someone is me. I always get embarrassed, like very, very embarrassed about every little thing that it stops me from doing something else.
Mm.
So one time I saw a girl just really like at work cry and be really stressed about an event we were doing for, I'm gonna say it's a deodorant, but it's not. So let's say it's a
Okay.
deodorant. And she was crying. I was like, hey, don't stress out about it because no one's gonna remember this event in 2 months. Kind of having that thought, like, I think it challenges the perception, like we want to be remembered, we want our work to be remembered, but honestly it's not so bad if it's forgotten, because if you can
Mhm.
forget good stuff, you can forget the bad stuff. So now
Yeah.
every time I go into a challenge that I think I'm gonna fail at, or I think is gonna be super painful, it's like, don't worry, it's gonna be over tomorrow. So for like a big deadline that I'm super scared about, like, don't worry, 6 p.m. tomorrow, you're fine, it's done. So even if it's bad or if it's good, it's done. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is like the highlight statement I have all the time now in my head, that okay, it's not perfect, but it's done. Or it's not the best, but it's done. Or you were super scared, but at least it's done.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a quote you live by, or is there another mantra that you personally live by?
Yes, the mantra that I live by is really what my mom said. So
Mm.
before, she would be like, I know she always hates it when we bring this up because it makes her sound like an airhead, but I think it's really the most poignant piece of advice ever given, is
Yeah.
that, and always match your bra and panty.
I love that advice. Actually, I heard this from you. You
Diba?
used to tell me this in college. Match your
Always
bra and
match your
panty.
bra and panty. Because it, like, before it was like ha 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 funny, but then you realize like it's a sense of order, it's a sense of achievement, that if something goes wrong, at least you have matching bra and panty.
We'll go into a little bit of your relationship. You've been living with your partner for a while. What makes
Mhm.
a good relationship?
Ooh, I guess the best part is really just getting, or just being comfortable that you are both weird and that everything is normal. I guess because when you're in your 20s, you really look for like rom-com love, that you're like,
Yeah.
oh, he didn't buy me flowers, or he didn't buy me anything. And then you kind of delude yourself into thinking that love languages are real. So I
Mm.
still kind of believe that. Like I believe in astrology and whatever, but then you kind of realize like, hey, acts of service, literally it's maybe not stealing your pillow. Or I guess
It's true.
it's not even in a way that you're lowering your standards. It's just you're accepting that, hey, it goes back into my thinking of, it's never like you don't count positives or negatives. You look at the net impact.
Mm.
Like
Mhm.
I always do an audit every day, like, okay, today is still a net positive. I also don't like it when people are like, oh, if you don't fight in a relationship, there's no passion. Like maybe you're not, like, I think it's okay that some relationships are not passionate. Like it's just fun. This chill love, I think, is a lot easier to manage because you're not gonna expect. I'm not saying that they're not gonna do like big grand romantic gestures. It's really more about, you know what, like it's not so bad. It's a 30s kind of love that it's like you can be passionate
Mm.
about something else. Like I think where my partner and I really connect is we like making stuff and we're supportive of each other making stuff.
So we're gonna start with Bea's favorite question.
Yeah.
What is love?
I don't know why I have a hard time answering this when I made love my personality in college. Like there's this book by Stendhal called Love, and we had a word na nasa Stendhal ako, because that meant, like in Stendhal's book, Love was about like you would go so nuts over something that looked like shit because you loved it. And I guess
Mm.
it's still like that. Like you could look at like a heaping pile of whatever, but if you love it, it's gonna look like gold. And like shallow how.
Oh,
I was gonna say, sounds like
classic.
that.
Yeah. So something like, I guess it's not even like, you know how some new agey people are like, love is about tolerance and you can tolerate the negatives and see the positives only. I guess for me, like love is like, you know what? Sometimes I'm not gonna put the dish in the sink, but I will probably do it another time. And you
Mm.
are, and probably the other person is like, hey, I'm not gonna remember to pay the bill on time. But it's okay. And then if you're both just okay, or if you're both okay with each other's weird things that you don't do, I guess
Mm.
for me that's most like love.